For 12 years, not a single wolf had dared to cross the burned bridge. The villagers believed the bridge was cursed. They believed any wolf that crossed it came to bring death, so when 3 enormous white wolves appeared in the middle of a deadly winter night, everyone in Frostmere locked their doors and hid. But the wolves did something no one expected. They didn't attack the village. They didn't enter the houses, they walked through the snow, straight to the tiny cottage of a poor Omega named Mara. Then all 3 wolves lay down outside her door. They refused to leave. Mara was terrified. But when she saw blood on the youngest wolf's paw, she opened her door and whispered, "Come inside. I'll help you." She had no idea that the wolves were royal guardians. She had no idea their Alpha King was watching from the darkness. And she certainly didn't know why they had crossed a bridge no wolf had crossed in 12 years. Because they had finally found the woman they had been searching for. For 12 years, no wolf had crossed the burned bridge. Not one. The people of Frostmere had built their lives around that fact. Children were warned never to go near the bridge. Hunters avoided the forest beyond it. Even grown men lowered their voices whenever the name Blackpine was spoken, because 12 years ago, something terrible had happened there. A fire had swallowed the old bridge, the royal wolves of Blackpine had disappeared, and after that night, everyone believed the land beyond the bridge belonged to death. But on this particular winter night, Mara Ashvale heard footsteps outside her cottage. She looked up from the small fire. The sound came again. Crunch, 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 slow footsteps moving through deep snow. Mara held her breath. Her little cottage stood at the very edge of Frostmere. There were no neighbors close enough to hear her if she screamed. She had always accepted that. Being alone was easier than being unwanted. She rose slowly from her chair. The wind pushed against the wooden walls. Then came a low growl. Mara froze, her eyes moved toward the door. A wolf, the thought alone made her heart race. No wolf had crossed the burned bridge in 12 years. That was impossible. Another growl came from outside. This time it was much closer. Mara reached for the small knife beside the fireplace. It was not much of a weapon, but it was all she had. She stepped toward the door. Every instinct told her not to open it. Yet something inside her whispered that whoever was outside needed help. Mara placed her hand on the wooden latch. She hesitated. Then she opened the door. A blast of freezing wind rushed inside. Snow flew across the floor. And Mara stopped breathing. 3 enormous white wolves stood outside. They were unlike any wolves she had ever seen. Their bodies were huge. Their fur was almost pure white. Moonlight covered their backs like silver. The largest wolf stood in front. Its eyes were cold and watchful. The second stood several steps behind it. And the smallest wolf stood between them. Mara tightened her grip on the knife. Her heart pounded. The largest wolf looked directly into her eyes. Mara expected a growl instead. The wolf simply watched her. Then the youngest wolf took one step forward. Mara stepped back. The wolf stopped. There was something strange in its eyes. It did not look angry. It looked tired, afraid. Mara slowly lowered the knife. Then she noticed the blood. A dark stain covered the youngest wolf's front paw. Fresh blood marked the snow beneath it. Mara's fear changed into concern. "Oh!" Her voice was barely louder than the wind. "You're hurt." The wolf lifted its injured paw. Mara stared at it. For years, people had told her that wolves were monsters. But monsters did not look like this. This creature looked like it was asking for help. Mara carefully stepped outside. The snow immediately soaked through her thin shoes. She ignored the cold. She crouched several feet away from the wolf. "I won't hurt you." The wolf watched her. Mara slowly held out her hand. Nothing happened. She moved a little closer. The wolf did not retreat. Mara reached its paw. The creature flinched. She stopped. "I'm sorry." Her voice became softer. "I'll be careful." The wolf stared at her for several seconds. Then it lowered its head. Mara touched its injured paw. The wolf did not attack. It simply allowed her to hold it. Mara looked closely at the wound. Something had cut deeply into the fur. She frowned. "This needs to be cleaned." The wolf gave a quiet sound. Not a growl. Almost a whimper. Mara's heart tightened. "You crossed all the way from Blackpine like this." The wolf looked toward the forest. Mara followed its gaze. Beyond the snowy fields stood the burned bridge. Its blackened remains were barely visible through the storm. Mara looked back at the wolves. "You crossed the bridge." The largest wolf raised its head. Mara swallowed. That could not be true. Everyone knew the wolves feared the bridge, or perhaps they did not fear it. Perhaps they had simply never had a reason to cross before. Mara carefully stood. Wait here. She turned toward her cottage. The largest wolf suddenly moved. Mara froze. The massive creature stepped closer. For one terrifying moment, she thought it would attack. Instead, it lowered its head near her shoulder. Then it walked past her and lay down beside the doorway. The second wolf followed. It settled beside the cottage wall, facing the road. The youngest wolf remained in front of Mara. Then it slowly lay down across the entrance. Mara stared. You are staying. None of them moved. She almost smiled despite herself. You're strange. She hurried inside and returned with a bowl of warm water, clean cloth, and a little food. The youngest wolf watched every movement. Mara knelt again. Let's see that paw. She cleaned the wound carefully. The wolf remained still. When she finished, Mara placed the bowl of food in front of it. The wolf sniffed, but it did not eat. Mara frowned. You're not hungry. The wolf looked at her. Mara sat down in the snow. Fine. She waited. The wolf slowly began eating. Mara watched silently. For the first time in years, she felt something she had almost forgotten needed. The feeling was small, but powerful. She reached out and touched the wolf's head. The creature did not move away. Instead, it lowered its head into her lap. Mara's eyes widened. You trust me. The wolf closed its eyes. Mara looked toward the other two. They were still watching her. Not threatening. Guarding. One faced the forest. The other faced the road. Mara suddenly realized something. They were not waiting for her to become afraid. They were waiting for something to come. A chill ran through her. What are you protecting me from? The wolves remained silent. Far beyond the cottage, something moved between the trees. Mara did not see it. But the largest wolf did. Its head snapped toward the forest. A deep growl rolled across the snow. The other two wolves stood immediately. Mara's heart jumped. What is it? The three wolves stared into the darkness. Then, somewhere beyond the burned bridge, a distant howl answered. Mara slowly stood. The wolves moved closer to her. The youngest pressed against her leg. She looked into the dark forest. A figure stood among the trees, too far away to see clearly, too still to be a villager. Mara could only see the outline of a tall man wearing a dark cloak. He had been watching the cottage, watching her. Watching the wolves. The man turned slightly. Moonlight touched his face, and Mara saw cold silver eyes. She did not know his name. She did not know why he had come. But the three wolves knew. The largest wolf lowered its head. Not toward Mara, toward the man in the forest. And the stranger finally whispered one sentence into the darkness. After 12 years. His eyes remained fixed on Mara. They finally found her. The wind became stronger. The wolves stood between Mara and the forest. And for the first time that night, Mara understood something terrifying. The wolves had not crossed the burned bridge by accident. They had been searching for her. By sunrise, the storm had weakened. Snow covered the fields around Mara's cottage. The world outside looked quiet, almost peaceful. But Mara had barely slept. She sat beside the window and watched the three white wolves. They had stayed exactly where they had settled during the night. The largest wolf stood near the edge of the cottage yard. The second rested beside the fence. And Ash, the youngest, was still lying directly outside her door. Mara had given him that name in her mind. She did not know his real name. She did not even know if wolves had names. But somehow Ash felt right. He lifted his head when Mara opened the door. Good morning. Ash looked at her. Mara smiled faintly. You really stayed. The wolf slowly stood. His injured paw touched the snow. He winced. Mara immediately frowned. Don't move too much. She crouched beside him. The wound looked better than it had the night before. But it was still painful. Mara touched his fur gently. She leaned closer. Mara looked at the enormous creature. You know everyone in this village is going to be terrified of you. Ash blinked. And they will probably blame me. The thought made her smile disappear. Because Mara knew Frostmere. She knew how quickly people judged anyone who was different. Especially in Omega. Especially her. Mara had lived her entire life being reminded that she was weak. When she was young, she had been forced to work while other girls were allowed to attend village celebrations. When food became scarce, she was always given the smallest portion. When someone needed help carrying heavy baskets, Mara was called. But when someone needed kindness or gratitude, she was forgotten. She had learned to expect nothing. That was why the wolves frightened her. Not because they were dangerous, but because they made her feel important. And Mara did not know what to do with that feeling. She returned inside and prepared some food. When she came back out, she placed a bowl near Ash. The youngest wolf sniffed it, then looked at Mara. "Eat." He did not move. Mara sighed. "You cannot keep looking at me like that." Ash tilted his head. Mara almost laughed. "Fine." She sat beside him. Only then did he begin eating. The other two wolves watched silently. Mara looked at them. "You two." The largest wolf finally approached. Mara placed another bowl down. He lowered his head and began eating. The second followed. For several minutes there was nothing except the sound of the wind and the wolves eating. Mara felt strangely peaceful. Then a voice came from behind her. "What are you doing?" Mara's smile disappeared. He turned. Two villagers stood near the road. Both were staring at the wolves. Their faces had gone pale. One of them dropped the bundle of wood he was carrying. "Wolves." The second man took a step backward. "3 wolves." Mara stood. "Please don't be afraid." The first man stared at her. "Don't be afraid." His voice shook. "They crossed the burned bridge." Mara said nothing. Everyone knew what that meant. The man ran back toward the village. "Tell the council." The second man followed. Within minutes the quiet morning was gone. People began appearing on the road. Some carried tools. Some carried sticks. Few carried weapons. Mara stood between the villagers and the wolves. Sh moved beside her. The largest wolf gave a warning growl. Mara turned toward him. "No." The wolf looked at her. "They are afraid." She placed one hand against his shoulder. "You don't need to fight them." The wolf remained still. The villagers watched in disbelief. Mara was touching a royal-looking wolf as if it were a frightened dog. Then the village bell rang. Once. 3 times. Mara's stomach tightened. The council only rang the bell for serious matters. A villager shouted from the road. "Mara Ashvale." She looked up. "You are ordered to appear before the council immediately." Mara lowered her eyes. Course. They had already decided she was guilty. She looked at the wolves. The thought of leaving them alone made her uncomfortable. But the order could not be ignored. Mara walked toward the village. Ash followed. He stopped. "You cannot come." Ash continued. Mara sighed. "I mean it." He stopped. For 1 second Mara thought he understood. Then the other 2 wolves started walking. Mara stared at them. "You have got to be joking." They continued behind her. People moved away as the 4 of them approached the village square. Whispers spread everywhere. The Omega brought them. She summoned them. They came because of her. She must have crossed the bridge. Mara kept walking. Her hands trembled. She wanted to explain. But she already knew nobody would listen. When she entered the square, the crowd became silent. At the far end stood Luna Seraphine. She wore a long dark cloak trimmed with silver. She looked perfect, controlled, powerful. Everything Mara was not. Seraphine's eyes moved from Mara to the wolves. Her expression changed. For the briefest moment Mara saw fear. Then it disappeared. "So?" Seraphine's voice was cold. The wolves finally returned. Mara lowered her head. "I don't know why they came." Seraphine stepped closer. "Do not lie to me." "I'm not." "You expect us to believe 3 royal wolves crossed the burned bridge and simply chose your cottage?" Mara looked toward Ash. "He was injured." Seraphine's eyes narrowed. "And you helped him?" "Yes." "Why?" Mara hesitated. "Because he needed help." A few villagers laughed. Seraphine looked amused. You always were foolish. Mara said nothing. Seraphine moved closer. You think kindness makes you special? Mara lowered her eyes. No. Then what do you think makes these creatures trust you? I don't know. Seraphine stared at her. Then she turned toward the council. This is exactly what I warned you about. Mara looked up. What did you warn them about? Seraphine smiled. That you were not as harmless as you appeared. The crowd murmured. Mara felt her chest tighten. She wanted to defend herself. But every time she spoke, the villagers seemed to believe her less. Then Ash stepped forward. He stood directly beside Mara. His body almost completely blocked her from the crowd. The square became silent. Seraphine stared at him. The largest wolf moved next. Then the third. All three formed a wall around Mara. No one spoke. Mara looked at them. She had never had anyone stand beside her like that. Not once. Seraphine's expression hardened. Drive them away. Several guards stepped forward. Mara immediately raised her hand. Please. The guards stopped. They have not hurt anyone. Seraphine answered coldly. They are wolves. They are injured. They are dangerous. Mara looked at Ash. Then why have they not attacked anyone? Nobody answered. Mara took another step. They have had many chances. The villagers became quiet. They could have attacked me last night. She looked around the square. They did not. She pointed toward Ash. He was hurt. Then she looked at the others. They stayed outside my door all night. Her voice became softer. They protected me. A few villagers exchanged uncertain looks. Seraphine stepped forward. Enough. Mara looked at her. Seraphine's voice became louder. You will surrender the wolves before sunset. Mara's heart sank. What? You heard me. Where will they go? That is not your concern. Mara looked at the guards. Then at Ash. The youngest wolf was trembling. Mara could see fear in his eyes. She remembered the blood on his paw. She remembered how carefully he had trusted her. And something inside her finally broke. For years Mara had obeyed. She had lowered her head. She had accepted every insult, every unfair order, every cruel judgment. But she could not watch them punish three creatures simply because they were different. Mara slowly stepped forward. No. The entire square fell silent. Seraphine's eyes widened. What did you say? Mara swallowed. Her voice shook. But she repeated it. No. Seraphine stepped closer. You are an Omega. I know. You have no authority here. I know. Then why are you refusing? Mara looked at Ash. Then back at Seraphine. Because they have done nothing wrong. The crowd stared at her. For the first time in her life Mara did not lower her head. She stood straight. She was still afraid. But she stood. Seraphine's face hardened. You will regret this. Mara did not answer. She simply placed her hand against Ash's head. The wolf leaned into her touch. Far beyond the village square the wind carried a distant sound. Howl. Powerful. And full of warning. Mara looked toward the burned bridge. Somewhere beyond it was the stranger who had watched her the night before. And now he was coming closer. But Mara did not know that the man in the forest had already made his decision. The moment she stood between the wolves and the entire village, the Alpha King stopped hiding. And Frostmere was about to discover who had truly crossed the burned bridge. The village square remained silent. Mara could hear her own heartbeat. She had never spoken against Luna Seraphine before. Never in public. Never when everyone was watching. But now three enormous white wolves stood behind her. And somehow Mara felt less afraid than she had ever felt in her life. Seraphine stared at her as though she could not believe what she was seeing. You think you can refuse me? Mara swallowed. I think they should not be punished for something they did not do. A murmur moved through the crowd. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. You still do not understand. She pointed toward the burned bridge. No wolf has crossed that bridge in 12 years. I know. And now 3 have crossed it. Mara looked at the wolves. Yes. They came to your cottage. Yes. Then explain why. Mara shook her head. I can't. Seraphine smiled coldly. Exactly. The council members exchanged uneasy looks. One of the older elders stepped forward. Perhaps the wolves should be removed until we understand what is happening. Mara immediately turned toward him. Where will you take them? The elder avoided her eyes. That is not your concern. They are injured. They are wolves. Mara's voice became firmer. They are alive. The elder frowned. You are becoming difficult. Mara looked down. For a moment the old fear returned. She knew what happened to people who became difficult. They were punished. They were isolated. They were made to feel worthless. Then Ash touched his nose against her hand. Mara looked at him. The fear faded. She gently placed her fingers against his white fur. No. The elder frowned. What? Mara looked back at him. I won't let them face this alone. The words were quiet, but everyone heard them. Seraphine's expression changed. She had expected Mara to beg. She had expected tears. She had expected the frightened Omega who always lowered her head. Instead, Mara stood beside 3 wolves as though they belonged there. Seraphine turned toward the guards. Take the wolves. 4 guards moved forward. The largest white wolf stood immediately. A low growl rolled across the square. Several villagers stepped backward. Mara raised her hand. Wait. The wolf looked at her. Mara slowly turned toward him. It's okay. The wolf did not move. Mara stepped closer. I know you're scared. The wolf's growl faded. You don't have to fight. The wolf lowered his head. The guards stared in disbelief. Mara turned toward them. Please don't hurt them. One guard looked uncertain. But another tightened his grip on his weapon. They are dangerous. Mara shook her head. They have had all morning to attack someone. She looked around the square. They haven't. No one answered. Mara continued. They could have attacked the men who found them. She looked toward the road. They could have attacked the guards. Then she touched Ash's head. They could have attacked me. Her voice became softer. But they didn't. An elderly woman near the crowd slowly lowered the stick she had been holding. Maybe she was beginning to understand. Maybe others were too. But Seraphine was not. You are making a mistake, the Luna said. Mara looked at her. Maybe. Seraphine stepped closer. But mistakes have consequences. She turned toward the council. If Mara refuses to surrender the wolves, she should be removed from Frostmere. The crowd gasped. Mara's stomach dropped. So, that word frightened her more than anything. Her cottage was poor. Her clothes were old. Her life was lonely. But it was still the only home she had. Seraphine saw the fear in her eyes. She smiled. You have until sunset. Mara whispered. Please. That is not a request. Seraphine turned away. You will either surrender the wolves. He paused. Or leave with them. Mara looked at the 3 wolves. She did not know where they came from. She did not know why they had chosen her. But she knew one thing. She could not abandon them. The crowd slowly began to scatter. Whispers followed Mara everywhere. She has brought a curse. She must have crossed the bridge. Maybe she is working with the Alpha King. Mara kept her eyes down. She wanted to disappear. But then she heard footsteps behind her. The youngest wolf followed. Mara stopped. He stopped too. She looked at him. You should go. Ash stared at her. You have somewhere to return to. The wolf took another step. Mara shook her head. I don't. The words escaped before she could stop them. Her eyes filled with tears. She quickly turned away. She came closer. His head rested against her side. Mara closed her eyes. For years she had told herself she did not need anyone. Now 3 wolves had crossed a forbidden bridge just to stand beside her. She gently touched Ash's head. I don't know why you came. A soft sound came from his throat. But I'm glad you did. She did not see the figure watching from the far end of the village. The same dark figure from the night before. He stood beneath the shadow of an old stone building. His face remained calm. But his eyes were fixed on Mara. A man stepped beside him. Your Majesty. The stranger did not look away. How many? 3. The royal guardians. Yes. The man's expression tightened. And the girl. She protected the youngest. Silence. The stranger finally asked. Did she touch him? Yes. Did he accept her? The man hesitated. He rested against her. The stranger closed his eyes for a moment. 12 years. 12 years since the fire. 12 years since he had last seen the royal guardians willingly trust a human. His name was Kael Varen, Alpha King of Blackpine. And he had spent 12 years believing the burned bridge had taken everything from him. Now his wolves had crossed it. For one woman. Kael looked toward Mara. She doesn't know. The man beside him shook his head. No. Does she know who she is? No. Kael's jaw tightened. Then we have to find out who else knows. His companion lowered his voice. There is another problem. Kael looked at him. The Luna. Kael's expression became colder. What about her? She has been searching for the royal bloodline for years. Kael looked back toward Mara. The young Omega was walking slowly toward her cottage. Ash followed beside her. The other 2 wolves walked behind them. Kael watched until they disappeared from view. Then he looked toward the burned bridge. Something about tonight felt wrong. The wolves had not simply returned. They had chosen. And the last time the royal guardians had chosen a human, someone had tried to kill that person. Kael's hands tightened. Prepare the horses. His companion looked surprised. Tonight. Kael nodded. I'm crossing the bridge. For 12 years, the Alpha King had refused to return to Frostmere. For 12 years, the burned ruins had remained untouched. But now 3 white wolves had crossed the boundary. And Kael would not leave them there alone. Mara returned to her cottage before sunset. She had barely closed the door when the 3 wolves settled around the house. The largest stood near the entrance. The second watched the forest. Ash lay beside the door. Mara sat near the fireplace. Her hands were shaking. She had never faced the village like that. She had never said no to Seraphine. And now she might lose everything. Soft sound came from outside. Mara opened the door. Ash was staring toward the burned bridge. The other 2 wolves were standing. Their ears were raised. Mara followed their gaze. The snow was falling harder now. But through the storm she could see something. Lights. Moving lights. Torches. Someone was coming from the bridge. Mara's heart began racing. Who is that? The largest wolf stepped forward. Ash rose beside her. The torches moved closer. Then came the sound of horses. 1, 2, 3. A group of riders emerged from the snow. At the center rode a man dressed entirely in black. He sat perfectly still on a massive dark horse. The wolves lowered their heads. Mara stared. The rider stopped at the edge of her property. For several seconds, neither he nor Mara spoke. Then he dismounted. His boots touched the snow. He walked toward her. Every step was calm, controlled, powerful. Mara could not explain why the air suddenly felt heavier. The man stopped several feet away. His silver eyes met hers. Ash moved between them. The stranger looked at the wolf, then at Mara, and finally he spoke. You should not have opened your door. Mara frowned. Why? His gaze moved toward the 3 wolves. Because now they know where you are. Mara's heart stopped. Who are you? The stranger remained silent. Then he looked beyond her cottage toward the burned bridge. I am the reason no wolf has crossed that bridge in 12 years. Mara stared at him. The truth had finally arrived. But she was not ready to hear it. Because the man standing in front of her was not a traveler. He was not a hunter. He was not a villager. He was the Alpha King of Blackpine, and he had come for the three wolves. But after seeing Mara standing beside them, he realized he might have come for something far more important. Mara could not move. The stranger stood before her beneath the falling snow. The three white wolves remained between them. For a moment no one spoke. Mara looked at the man's dark clothing, the silver crest on his cloak, the calm expression that seemed to hide years of pain. Then she looked toward the burned bridge. "You are." Her voice failed. The man answered quietly. "Kael Varen." The name moved through Mara's mind. She had heard it since childhood. Every child in Frostmere knew the stories. Kael Varen, the Alpha King of Blackpine, the ruler who had lost his kingdom in the Great Fire. The Wolf King people feared. The man blamed for the curse beyond the bridge. Mara took a careful step backward. Kael noticed, but he did not move toward her. Instead he looked at the three wolves. The largest lowered his head. The second did the same. Ash remained beside Mara. Kael's eyes narrowed. "They have never done that." Mara looked confused. "Done what?" "Chosen someone." His voice was almost a whisper. Mara glanced at Ash. "I don't understand." Kael studied her face. "You shouldn't." There was something strange in the way he said it. Not anger. Not hatred. Something closer to uncertainty. Mara gathered courage. "Why did they come to me?" Kael did not answer immediately. He looked toward the burned bridge. Snow covered the blackened remains. For 12 years he had avoided that place. Now his wolves had forced him back. "The bridge was not always burned," he said. Mara looked at the ruins. "I know." "No." Kael's voice became quieter. "You know the story Frostmere was given." Mara frowned. "What does that mean?" Kael stepped toward the bridge. The wolves followed. Mara remained where she was. Then Ash looked back at her. Mara sighed. "Of course." She followed them. The journey toward the bridge was silent. Snow covered the ground. The village lights slowly disappeared behind them. Soon there was only the forest and the ruined bridge. Mara stopped several feet away. She had never been this close before. The old wood was blackened. The stone supports were cracked. Burn marks still covered the ground. Kael stood at the edge. His face changed. For the first time, Mara saw the pain behind his cold expression. "You were here," she whispered. Kael nodded. 12 years ago. What happened?" Kael looked at the ruins. "My family was here." Mara said nothing. "The royal wolves were guarding the bridge." He paused. "Then the fire began." Mara looked at him. "Who started it?" Kael's eyes hardened. "We were told it was betrayal." "By whom?" Kael looked toward Frostmere. "Someone said a servant from the royal household had opened the gates." Mara's heart skipped. "A servant?" Kael nodded. "She was blamed for everything. Did you believe her?" "I was young." His voice became colder. "I believed the people I trusted." Mara looked at the wolves. The largest was sniffing the frozen ground. Ash suddenly moved toward a patch of snow near the bridge. He began scratching. Mara followed him. "What did you find?" Ash continued digging. His claws struck something metallic. Mara crouched. She brushed away the snow. A small silver pendant appeared beneath it. She picked it up. The moment her fingers touched the metal, a strange warmth traveled through her hand. Mara gasped. The world around her seemed to disappear. She saw flames. She saw the bridge burning. People running through smoke. Wolves moving through the fire. A woman holding a tiny child. The woman turned. Mara could not see her face clearly, but she heard her voice. "Take her." Someone answered. "I cannot leave you. You must." The vision changed. A giant white wolf stood between the woman and the flames. Then another. Then a third. The woman placed the child into someone's arms. "Protect her." The vision shattered. Mara dropped the pendant. She stumbled backward. Kael caught her before she fell. For a brief moment, he looked genuinely alarmed. "What did you see?" Mara looked at him. "I don't know." Her breathing was unsteady. "A woman." Kael's expression changed. "What woman?" "She was carrying a baby." Kael became completely still. "What did she say?" Mara looked down at the pendant. "She said." Her voice trembled. "Protect her." Kael slowly looked toward the wolves. The three guardians were staring at Mara. Not at the pendant. Her. Mara picked it up again. The silver symbol was clearer now. It was the crest of Blackpine. Kael's voice became low. "Where did you get that?" "It was buried here." "That is impossible." "Why?" "Because that seal belonged to the royal family." Mara stared at him. "Maybe someone dropped it." Kael shook his head. "No." He stepped closer. "That seal was used to protect the royal bloodline." Mara's fingers tightened around it. "What does that have to do with me?" Kael did not answer. Instead he looked toward the forest. A branch snapped. The wolves turned immediately. Kael's hand moved toward the weapon at his side. Mara stepped closer to him. "Someone is there." Kael nodded. The wolves spread out. A shadow moved between the trees, then disappeared. Kael's expression hardened. "We are not alone." Mara looked toward the darkness. "Who is watching us?" Kael's answer was simple. "Someone who wants that pendant." Mara looked down. She suddenly understood. The pendant was not just an old piece of metal. It was evidence. And someone was afraid of what it could reveal. Across the forest, another figure stood beneath the trees. Luna Seraphine watched from a distance. She had followed them. Her face was cold. The moment she saw the pendant in Mara's hand, she knew the truth. The girl was connected to the royal family. After 12 years of searching, Seraphine had finally found what she wanted. The lost bloodline. Her hands tightened around her cloak. After all these years, one of her guards stepped closer. "What should we do?" Seraphine looked toward Mara. "Nothing." The guard looked surprised. "Nothing." "Not yet." Seraphine smiled. "Let the Alpha King believe he has found an answer." He turned away. "When he discovers who she really is, he will become protective. And then," Seraphine's smile grew colder, "then we will use that protection against him." Back at the bridge, Mara returned the pendant to Kael. He did not take it. "Keep it." Mara stared at him. "Why?" "Because it responded to you." Mara looked at the silver crest. "What does that mean?" Kael looked into her eyes. "It means the royal blood may have recognized you." Mara shook her head. "No. You don't know that. I am an Omega from Frostmere." Kael's expression softened slightly. "That is what everyone told you." Mara's heart tightened. "What are you saying?" Kael looked toward the ruins. "I'm saying someone may have lied to you." The words struck harder than Mara expected. Her entire life had been built around one simple truth. She was nobody. An unwanted Omega. A girl without a family. A girl who had survived because nobody cared enough to notice her. Now a king was standing before her, telling her that perhaps everything she knew about herself was wrong. Mara shook her head. "I don't want to be important." Kael looked at her. "I know. I don't want a kingdom. I know. I don't want people fighting over me." Kael remained silent. Mara's eyes filled with tears. "I just want to know who I am." For the first time, Kael had no cold answer. He looked at the young woman standing beneath the snow. She did not look like a royal heir. She looked tired, lonely, and afraid. But she had stood against an entire village for 3 wolves. Kael finally understood what the guardians had seen. Not power. Not blood. Character. He looked toward the bridge. "We will find the truth." Mara wiped her eyes. "How?" Kael pointed toward the ruins. "There's something beneath the bridge." The wolves immediately moved toward the broken stone foundation. Mara followed. Kael pushed aside a fallen piece of timber. Behind it was a narrow opening. Hidden passage. Mara stared. This was here all along. Kael nodded. The royal family used it during emergencies. They entered. The passage led beneath the bridge. Cold stone surrounded them. The wolves moved ahead. After several minutes, they reached a sealed wooden door. Kael placed his hand against it. Nothing happened. Then Mara touched the silver pendant. The door clicked. Mara stared. Kael looked at her. Open it. She slowly pushed the door. Swung inward. Inside was a small chamber untouched by the fire. Old books covered the shelves. Maps lay across a stone table. And in the center was a wooden chest. Mara walked toward it. Her heart was pounding. Kael opened the chest. Inside were old royal records, letters, child's blanket, and a faded portrait. Mara picked it up. Her hands began trembling. The woman in the portrait had Mara's eyes. The same gentle expression. The same small mark near her cheek. Mara stared at the face. No. Kael looked at the portrait. His expression changed. He knew that woman. He had seen her before the fire. He had believed she was dead. Mara whispered. Who is she? Kael looked at her. Your mother. Mara's world went silent. For years, she had believed she had been abandoned. For years, she had believed nobody had chosen her. But now she was standing beneath the bridge where the greatest tragedy of Blackpine had begun. And the royal records were telling her something impossible. Her mother had not abandoned her. She had been trying to protect her. Mara slowly turned another page. At the bottom of the old document was a royal seal. And beneath it was one name. The name of the person who had rewritten the history of the burned bridge. Mara read it. Her face went pale. Kael leaned closer. What is it? Mara looked up. It says. Her voice shook. Seraphine. Kael's eyes turned cold. Above them, somewhere in Frostmere, the village bell suddenly began ringing. Once. Then again. Someone had discovered that Mara was gone. And whoever had been waiting 12 years for this secret to return, now knew exactly where to find her. The village bell kept ringing. Once. Again. The sound traveled through the frozen night and reached the hidden chamber beneath the burned bridge. Mara stood completely still. Her fingers were wrapped around the old royal document. At the bottom of the page was the name she had just read. Seraphine. The same woman who had spent years humiliating her. The same Luna who had accused her of bringing the wolves to Frostmere. The same woman who had ordered her to surrender them before sunset. Mara looked at Kael. She knew. Kael's eyes remained fixed on the document. Perhaps. No. Mara shook her head. She knew about my mother. Kael looked at her. And she knew about the royal bloodline. Mara's voice became smaller. Then why did she never tell me? Kael closed the chest. Because she did not want you to know. The words were simple. But they carried a terrible truth. Mara looked around the chamber. For the first time, the small pieces of her life began fitting together. The questions about her childhood. The strange dreams she sometimes had. The old pendant. The wolves. The bridge. Her mother. None of it had been random. Someone had hidden the truth from her. And that person had been standing in front of her for years. Kael moved toward the entrance. We have to leave. Mara looked up. Why? Because Seraphine knows we are here. A deep growl came from outside. The 3 wolves were already waiting. Kael drew his weapon. Mara stepped closer. Are we in danger? Kael looked at her. Yes. His answer was so calm that it frightened her more than panic would have. How much danger? Kael paused. Enough that I will not let you walk back to Frostmere alone. Mara looked at him. You keep saying that. Because you keep trying to face everything alone. She lowered her eyes. I have always had to. Kael's expression changed slightly. I know. Those 2 words caught her by surprise. He did not say them with pity. He said them like he understood. like he had carried the same loneliness. Mara looked toward the wolves. Ash stood beside the entrance. He seemed restless. Kael noticed. Something is coming. The wolves suddenly turned toward the forest. A distant howl answered. Then another. Kael's face hardened. Stay behind me. Mara almost argued. Then she saw his expression. This was not a request. He stepped outside. Mara followed. Snow covered the ground. The bridge stood behind them like a black scar beneath the moon. Kael looked toward the forest. Show yourself. Nothing moved. Then a branch snapped. 3 figures emerged between the trees. They were Frostmere guards. But they were not alone. Seraphine walked behind them. Her silver cloak moved through the snow. Mara's stomach tightened. Seraphine. The Luna smiled. There you are. Kael stepped forward. You should not have followed us. Seraphine stopped. I could say the same. Her eyes moved toward Mara. Then toward the pendant in Mara's hand. The smile disappeared. Give it to me. Mara tightened her fingers around it. No. Seraphine's expression hardened. You do not understand what you are holding. I understand enough. Seraphine laughed softly. You found the chamber. Kael's eyes narrowed. You knew it existed. Seraphine looked at him. Of course. How long? 12 years. Silence fell. Mara stared at her. 12 years. Seraphine looked directly at Mara. I knew your mother was alive after the fire. Mara's heart stopped. What? Kael's face became dangerously still. You said she died. Seraphine smiled. I said many things. Mara took a step forward. Where is she? Seraphine said nothing. Where is my mother? The Luna looked almost amused. Still asking the wrong question. Mara's voice shook. What question should I ask? Seraphine pointed at the pendant. Ask why the royal guardians chose you. The 3 wolves growled. Seraphine took a step back. Do you see? She looked at Kael. They know. Kael's eyes narrowed. What do they know? Seraphine smiled. That she is not simply an Omega. Mara felt the ground disappear beneath her. Kael looked at her. Then at the wolves. Then back at Seraphine. You have been searching for her. Yes. Why? Seraphine's expression became colder. Because the person who controls the royal bloodline controls Blackpine. Kael's hand tightened around his weapon. You will never control her. Seraphine laughed. You still think this is about you? She looked at Mara. It is about what she carries. Mara stepped backward. I carry nothing. Seraphine shook her head. You carry a bloodline that survived the fire. The words echoed through the forest. Kael looked at Mara. For a moment neither spoke. Then one of the guards moved forward. Kael's eyes flashed. Do not. The guard stopped. Kael's voice was calm. But there was something terrifying beneath it. I have spent 12 years avoiding this land. He looked toward the burned bridge. I will not allow you to turn it into another battlefield. Seraphine smiled. You are too late. She raised one hand. The guards drew their weapons. The wolves stepped forward. Mara's heart raced. Kael moved between her and the guards. Stay behind me. Mara whispered. I can help. No. Kael. He turned toward her. His voice softened. Not this time. Before Mara could answer, the first guard charged. The largest white wolf moved. A blur of silver crossed the snow. The guard was knocked backward. The second wolf blocked another attacker. Ash stayed beside Mara. Kael moved with terrifying speed. He did not fight wildly. Every movement was controlled. Every strike forced the guards backward. Mara watched in shock. This was the Alpha King she had heard stories about. Not a monster. Not a cursed ruler. Protector. But there were too many guards. One slipped past Kael. He moved toward Mara. She growled. Mara stepped backward. The guard raised his weapon. Then Kael appeared between them. The weapon stopped inches from him. Kael's eyes turned silver. The air seemed to shake. The guard dropped his weapon. He fell to his knees. Kael did not touch him. He did not need to. The Alpha's power alone had broken the man's courage. Seraphine stared. For the first time, fear appeared in her eyes. Kael turned toward her. Leave. Seraphine shook her head. You think this is over? No. Kael's voice was cold. I think it has finally begun. Seraphine looked at Mara. You will regret trusting him. Mara said nothing. Seraphine stepped backward. Ask him what happened to your mother. Mara froze. Kael's face became unreadable. Seraphine smiled. Then she disappeared into the trees with the remaining guards. Silence returned. Snow fell softly. Mara turned toward Kael. What did she mean? Kael did not answer. What happened to my mother? Kael looked away. Mara stepped closer. You know something. He remained silent. Kael. His jaw tightened. I know what happened the night of the fire. Then tell me. Kael finally looked into her eyes. I was there. Mara's breath caught. You saw her? Yes. What happened? Kael looked toward the bridge. Your mother saved someone that night. Who? Kael hesitated. The royal heir. Mara's eyes widened. Who was the heir? Kael did not answer. He looked toward the three wolves. Then toward the darkness beyond the bridge. Finally he said, My younger brother. Mara stared at him. But you said the royal family disappeared. They did. What happened to him? Kael's expression became painful. I never found his body. Mara slowly understood. Her mother had saved the royal heir. The royal heir had disappeared. And the wolves had been guarding the secret for 12 years. She looked at Ash. The young wolf was staring at her. Then Mara noticed something on his collar. A tiny silver mark. The same symbol as the pendant. She reached toward it. Ash lowered his head. Mara touched the mark. A strange warmth filled her palm. The wolf closed his eyes. Kael watched closely. What is it? Mara whispered. Kael stepped closer. That mark belonged to my brother. Mara's eyes widened. Ash lifted his head. For one brief moment. His eyes seemed to glow beneath the moonlight. Then the other two wolves began howling. Their voices rose into the night. Kael looked toward the mountains. His face changed. What? Mara stared at him. Kael listened. A fourth howl answered from far away. Then a fifth. Then another. Mara felt a chill. Those aren't the three wolves. Kael shook his head. No. Then who are they? Kael looked toward the distant mountains. His voice was barely audible. I don't know. The wolves continued howling. And for the first time in 12 years, the forests of Blackpine were answering. Later that night, Kael brought Mara back toward her cottage. The three wolves walked beside them. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally Mara broke the silence. Why did you come for them? Kael looked at Ash. They are royal guardians. Of your family. Yes. And they chose me. Yes. Why? Kael looked at her. I don't know. Mara lowered her eyes. That scares me. Kael stopped walking. Mara stopped too. He looked at her for several seconds. You are allowed to be afraid. She looked surprised. No one ever says that. Then they were wrong. Mara's eyes softened. Kael continued. Being afraid does not make you weak. She looked toward him. And what does? Kael answered quietly. Abandoning what matters because you are afraid. Mara thought about his words. Then she looked at Ash. I won't abandon them. Kael nodded. I know. They continued walking. When they reached the cottage, the three wolves settled into their usual positions. The largest near the road. The second near the forest. Ash outside Mara's door. Mara turned toward Kael. Are you leaving? Kael looked toward the bridge. For tonight. She nodded. Will you come back? Kael looked at her. Something unspoken passed between them. Yes. Mara's heart beat faster. Why? Kael's gaze moved toward the three wolves. Because they chose you. Then his eyes returned to hers. And I need to know why. He turned away. Mara watched him disappear into the snow. But she did not know that Kael had already made another decision. He would not allow Seraphine to reach Mara again. And if the rumors about Mara's bloodline were true, then the entire balance of Blackpine was about to change. Inside her cottage, Mara placed the silver pendant beside the fire. She stared at the portrait of her mother. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe her mother had not abandoned her. Maybe she had loved her. Maybe someone had protected her all these years. Outside, Ash lifted his head. A distant howl echoed from the mountains. Then another. Mara walked to the window. She looked toward the darkness. And far beyond the burned bridge, dozens of pale shapes moved through the forest. They were coming closer. And whatever they wanted, they were coming for Mara. Morning came without sunlight. Heavy clouds covered Frostmere. Snow fell over the village square, hiding the footprints from the night before. But it could not hide what had happened. Everyone knew the Alpha King had crossed the burned bridge. Everyone knew he had stood beside Mara. And everyone knew the three white wolves had chosen her. By sunrise, the village was filled with whispers. Mara stood inside her cottage, staring through the window. Ash was lying outside her door. The other two wolves watched the road. They had barely slept. Neither had she. The silver pendant rested in Mara's hand. She looked at the old portrait of her mother. There were still too many questions. Why had her mother been connected to Blackpine? Why had Seraphine hidden the truth? Why had the royal wolves crossed the bridge for her? And why had Kael looked at her as though he already knew something she did not? A loud knock interrupted her thoughts. Mara opened the door. 3 village guards stood outside. One of them looked uncomfortable. Mara Ashvale. She knew what was coming. Yes. You are ordered to come to the village square. Why? The council is waiting. Mara looked at Ash. The wolf stood immediately. The guard stepped backward. He stays here. Mara frowned. They won't hurt him. The guard looked toward the enormous creature. I hope not. Mara closed the door behind her. The wolves followed. She walked toward the square with them. The moment she arrived, she knew this was different. Hundreds of villagers had gathered. The council stood on the raised platform. And at the center stood Luna Seraphine. She wore a dark silver cloak. Her expression was calm. Come. Mara stopped. Seraphine smiled. Come forward. Mara did not move. Seraphine's voice sharpened. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Mara walked forward. The wolves followed. The crowd moved away. Seraphine looked at them. Remove the wolves. Mara immediately shook her head. No. Seraphine looked toward the guards. They are not welcome here. Mara stepped between them. They have done nothing. Seraphine's expression hardened. They crossed a forbidden border. They were injured. They are royal wolves. Mara looked at her. Then you should know they are not monsters. A murmur moved through the crowd. Seraphine raised her hand. Silence. The village became quiet. She turned toward Mara. You were warned. Mara said nothing. You were ordered to surrender them. I refused. Why? Mara looked at Ash. Because he trusted me. Several villagers laughed. Seraphine smiled. That is your defense. Mara looked at her. It is the truth. Seraphine stepped down from the platform. You expect the people of Frostmere to believe that 3 royal wolves crossed a forbidden bridge simply because they wanted your kindness? Mara's eyes lowered. I don't know why they came. Exactly. Seraphine turned toward the crowd. She admits she does not know. The villagers began whispering. Seraphine continued. She cannot explain the wolves. She cannot explain the pendant. She cannot explain the Alpha King's interest in her. Mara's heart tightened. Seraphine knew about the pendant. That meant she knew far more than she had admitted. Seraphine pointed toward Mara. This girl is hiding something. Mara looked up. I'm not. You expect us to believe that? Yes. Seraphine laughed. You have become very confident since the Alpha King arrived. Mara felt her cheeks grow warm. I have done nothing wrong. Seraphine moved closer. You have brought the attention of Blackpine to our village. I did not ask them to come. You opened your door. Mara stared at her. To an injured animal. A royal wolf. An injured creature. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. You always hide behind kindness. Mara's voice became quiet. Maybe kindness is not something that needs hiding. The crowd fell silent. Seraphine's face tightened. Then she turned toward the guards. Take the youngest wolf. Ash immediately stood. Mara moved in front of him. No. The guard stopped. Seraphine's voice became cold. You will move. Mara shook her head. You will not touch him. The words were quiet. But they carried across the entire square. The guard looked toward Seraphine. She nodded. The guard stepped forward. She growled. Mara placed both hands against his chest. Stay. The wolf looked at her. Please. Ash slowly lowered his head. Mara turned toward the guard. He won't hurt you. The guard approached. He reached for Ash. Mara stepped between them. The guard frowned. Move. No. You are disobeying the Luna. I know. The crowd began whispering again. Seraphine stepped forward. Do you know what happens to Omegas who refuse the council? Mara looked at her. Yes. You could lose your home. Mara's heart sank. She looked toward her cottage in the distance. That little house was all she had. The old bed. The cracked table. The fireplace. The few memories she had. It was not much. But it was home. Seraphine saw the hesitation. You can still save yourself. Mara looked at Ash. The young wolf was watching her. He trusted her. The same way she had trusted her mother without even remembering her. Mara slowly turned back. I won't let him face this alone. Seraphine's eyes became cold. So be it. She turned toward the council. By the authority of Frostmere, Mara Ashvale is accused of harboring dangerous royal creatures, concealing royal property, and threatening the safety of the village. Mara stared at her. That's not true. Seraphine continued. Until the truth is established, she will remain under council judgment. Mara looked around. No one spoke for her. Not one person. Then she saw an old woman near the edge of the crowd. The woman looked at Mara with uncertainty. Mara remembered helping her during the winter fever the year before. She had brought medicine when nobody else would. But now the woman looked away. Mara's chest hurt. This was how the village worked. People accepted kindness in secret. But when fear arrived, they abandoned the person who had given it. Seraphine stepped closer. You see. Mara looked at her. This is what happens when an Omega forgets her place. Something inside Mara went quiet. Not broken. Quiet. She looked at the crowd. Then at the wolves. Then toward the far end of the square. A man stood there. Oh. He had arrived without anyone noticing. He wore a dark cloak. His face revealed nothing. But his silver eyes were fixed on Mara. She looked at him for a moment. Hope rose inside her. Maybe he would speak. Maybe he would stop this. But Kael remained silent. Seraphine noticed him. She smiled. Your Majesty. The crowd turned. A wave of fear passed through the square. Kael walked forward. The villagers lowered their heads. Seraphine bowed. Mara did not. She simply stared at him. Kael stopped several steps away. Seraphine began speaking. Your Majesty, this Omega has brought your wolves into Frostmere. Kael said nothing. She refuses to surrender them. Still nothing. She has hidden royal property. Kael's eyes moved toward Mara, then toward the pendant. Mara's fingers tightened around it. Seraphine continued. She may be working with the enemies of Blackpine. Kael's gaze returned to Seraphine. Is that your accusation? Seraphine smiled. Yes. And your evidence? She hesitated. The wolves. Kael looked at the 3 white wolves. They are not evidence. Seraphine's smile disappeared. They chose her. I know. Then why? Kael's eyes returned to Mara. I do not know yet. Mara's heart sank. Not yet. Those words hurt more than she expected. She had hoped he believed her. Instead, he was still searching for answers. Seraphine seized the moment. You see. She turned toward the crowd. Even the Alpha King does not know why she has been chosen. Kael's expression hardened. But he remained silent. Mara lowered her head. For the first time since he arrived, she wondered if she had been foolish to trust him. Seraphine walked closer. Perhaps she should be punished before she brings greater danger. Mara looked at Kael. Her eyes were wet. She spoke softly. I don't need you to believe me. Kael's expression changed. Mara continued. I only ask you not to let them hurt the wolves. Kael stared at her. She was afraid. He could see it. But she was not asking him to save her. She was asking him to save them. Something inside Kael shifted. He remembered the night of the fire. He remembered his mother protecting his younger brother. He remembered the wolves standing around them. And now he saw Mara doing the same thing. Standing between danger and someone weaker than herself. Kael finally understood. The wolves had not chosen Mara because of power. They had chosen her because she carried the same courage that had once saved his family. He took one step forward. Seraphine watched him carefully. Then suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air. Whoosh! An arrow flew from the crowd, straight toward Mara. Shmoov. Mara turned. Everything happened in a single heartbeat. The arrow was almost upon them. Mara saw it. She saw Ash standing directly in its path. And she did the only thing her heart allowed. She threw herself over him. The arrow struck the frozen ground beside them. The entire square erupted in screams. The 3 wolves rose. Kael's eyes flashed silver. And his voice thundered across Frostmere. Enough! Every person in the square froze. The Alpha King's power swept through the village. Even the wolves became still. Kael walked toward Mara. His face was no longer calm. For the first time, the cold ruler of Blackpine looked furious. He knelt beside her. Mara! She looked up. I'm fine. His eyes searched her face. Are you hurt? No. She immediately looked at Ash. Is he safe? Kael followed her gaze. The young wolf was trembling beneath her. Mara wrapped her arms around him. Kael stared at her. She had nearly been injured. Yet the first thing she cared about was the wolf. Something in his expression softened. Only slightly, but enough for Mara to notice. Kael stood. Then he turned toward the crowd. His voice was quiet. And somehow that made it more frightening. Who fired the arrow? No one answered. Kael looked across the square. Who? Silence. Seraphine stepped forward. Perhaps someone panicked. Kael looked at her. An arrow was aimed at an unarmed woman. Seraphine said nothing. Kael's eyes became colder. That was not panic. Mara slowly stood. The crowd moved away from her. She looked at the arrow buried in the snow. Then at Seraphine. The Luna's expression had changed. Fear was visible now. But before Kael could question anyone further, Seraphine spoke. There is another truth you should know. Kael turned. Seraphine looked at Mara. Her blood is connected to the woman responsible for the burned bridge. The square went silent. Kael's face changed. Mara looked at him. What does she mean? Kael said nothing. Seraphine smiled. Ask him. Mara turned toward Kael. The Alpha King stared at her. Because he knew exactly who Seraphine meant. The woman who had been blamed for the fire. The woman who had disappeared 12 years ago. The woman who had carried a child away from the burning bridge. Mara's mother. And suddenly the question was no longer why the wolves had chosen Mara. The real question was much more dangerous. What had Mara's mother been protecting that night? The village square had become completely silent. Mara stood beside Ash with snow falling around her. The arrow remained buried in the ground, only a few inches from where she had thrown herself over the young wolf. Her hands were still trembling, but she kept them around Ash. The wolf pressed close to her. Kael stood between Mara and the crowd. His silver eyes moved slowly across every face. No one dared speak. Then his gaze stopped on the arrow. Someone tried to kill her. His voice was calm. Come. Seraphine stepped forward. Your Majesty, no one knows who fired it. Kael looked at her. Then find out. Seraphine's expression tightened. The village is frightened. So am I. Everyone looked at him. Kael continued. But fear does not give anyone the right to attack an innocent person. Seraphine folded her arms. How do you know she is innocent? Kael turned toward Mara. For a moment, his expression softened. Because I watched her. Mara looked at him. Kael's voice carried across the square. When everyone else saw 3 dangerous wolves, she saw an injured creature. He looked toward Ash. When everyone demanded that they be driven away, she stood between them and the guards. Then he looked at Mara again. And when an arrow was fired, she did not run. The crowd became completely still. She stood where no one else dared to stand. Mara lowered her eyes. She did not feel brave. She had only been afraid of losing Ash. Kael looked toward the council. That is not the behavior of someone planning an attack. Seraphine's jaw tightened. You are protecting her. Kael answered without hesitation. Yes. The single word shocked everyone. Mara looked at him. Kael continued. Until the truth is known, no one touches her. Seraphine's voice became sharper. You would place an entire village at risk for 1 Omega. Kael looked directly at her. If protecting one innocent woman requires courage, then yes. A murmur moved through the crowd. Seraphine stepped closer. You are making a mistake. Kael's expression did not change. I have made enough mistakes. His eyes moved toward the burned bridge. For 12 years. Mara felt something shift in the air. The Alpha King's anger was not only about the arrow. It was about the past, the fire, his family, and the woman Seraphine had just named. Mara finally spoke. Kael. He looked at her. What happened to my mother? His expression hardened. Seraphine watched carefully. Kael remained silent. Mara took a step closer. You know something. Kael looked toward the bridge. I know she was there. At the fire. Yes. Did she start it? Kael looked back at her. No. Mara's heart stopped. Seraphine immediately interrupted. You cannot know that. Kael turned toward her. I was there. Seraphine went quiet. Mara stared at Kael. You saw her. Yes. What did she do? Kael's voice became quieter. She saved my brother. Mara's eyes filled with tears. My mother. Kael nodded. She carried him away from the flames. Where did she take him? I don't know. Mara's breathing became unsteady. But everyone said she betrayed Blackpine. They were wrong. The words broke something inside her. For years Mara had believed her mother had abandoned her. She had imagined that perhaps her mother had simply not wanted her. Now she was learning that the woman had been running through fire trying to save someone else. Mara wiped her eyes. Then why did no one tell me? Kael looked toward Seraphine. Someone wanted the truth buried. Seraphine stepped forward. This is absurd. Kael turned. You knew. Seraphine's face remained controlled. I knew rumors. You knew about the hidden chamber. I knew it existed. You knew Mara's mother survived the fire. Seraphine said nothing. Mara looked at her. You knew. Seraphine finally answered. Yes. Mara's chest tightened. All these years. Seraphine shrugged. You were safer not knowing. Safer. Mara's voice broke. You let me believe my mother abandoned me. Seraphine's expression remained cold. Believing you were nobody kept you alive. Mara stared at her. Why? Seraphine looked toward the wolves. Because people would kill for what you carry. Kael stepped forward. You have said enough. Seraphine smiled. No. She looked at Mara. She deserves to know. Kael's eyes narrowed. Know what? Seraphine pointed toward Mara. She is the last living descendant of the old Blackpine bloodline. The crowd erupted in whispers. Mara stood frozen. No. Seraphine continued. The royal guardians recognized her. Kael looked at the three wolves. The largest stood proudly. The second watched Mara. Ash remained close to her. Seraphine smiled. You finally understand. Kael said nothing. Mara shook her head. I am not royal. Seraphine laughed softly. You were born royal. I don't remember. You were a child. I don't want it. Seraphine's smile faded. You do not get to choose what you are. Mara looked at Kael. He stepped toward her. You do. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Kael continued. Blood does not decide what kind of person you become. Mara looked at him. His words gave her something she had never expected. Ois. Not a title. Not a kingdom. Ois. She could be more than what people had called her. But she did not need to become someone else. She could remain Mara. The girl who helped injured animals. The girl who opened her door. The girl who refused to abandon someone weaker. Mara looked toward Ash. The young wolf raised his head. She touched his fur. I don't care about a throne. Kael nodded. I know. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. I know. And I don't want the wolves punished. Kael looked at the three guardians. They will not be. Seraphine stepped forward. You are making promises you may not be able to keep. Kael's eyes turned silver. I keep my promises. A deep silence followed. Then one of the council members stepped forward. Your Majesty. Kael looked at him. If Mara truly carries royal blood, the council must investigate. Kael nodded. They will. The elder continued. And until the investigation is complete, perhaps she should remain under guard. Mara looked at him. Guard. Seraphine smiled. Kael's expression became cold. No. The elder hesitated. Kael stepped beside Mara. She will remain under my protection. The words caused another wave of whispers. Mara looked up at him. Kael did not look at her. His attention remained on the council. Anyone who wishes to question her will answer to me first. Seraphine's hands tightened. This village belongs to Frostmere. Kael looked at her. The wolves belong to Blackpine. Then his eyes moved toward Mara. And she is under my protection. Mara felt a strange warmth in her chest. Not because she needed someone to save her. But because, for the first time, someone powerful had stood beside her without asking her to become powerless. Suddenly Ash growled. His ears pointed toward the eastern road. The other wolves turned too. Kael immediately noticed. What is it? A guard came running into the square. Your Majesty. Kael turned. The guard was breathing hard. There are riders approaching from the forest. How many? The guard looked frightened. Too many. Kael's face hardened. Who are they? We don't know. Mara looked toward the burned bridge. Snow was falling heavily. Through the white curtain, dark shapes appeared. One. Then another. Then several more. The villagers began backing away. Kael stepped forward. The three white wolves moved with him. Mara stayed behind them. Then Ash suddenly turned toward Mara. His eyes widened. He began making a soft, frightened sound. Mara crouched beside him. What is it? Ash looked toward the mountains. Then toward Mara. A strange mark on his collar began glowing beneath the snow. Kael saw it. His face changed. Everyone inside. Mara stood. Why? Kael looked toward the forest. Because those riders aren't here for the village. His gaze returned to Mara. They're here for you. The wind howled. The approaching figures crossed the edge of the forest. And somewhere among them, a horn sounded. The same horn that had been heard 12 years earlier. On the night the burned bridge burned. The horn echoed across Frostmere. Once, then again. Mara felt the sound inside her chest. She had never heard that horn before. Yet somehow it felt familiar. The 3 white wolves reacted immediately. Their ears rose. Their bodies became tense. Ash moved closer to Mara. Kael stared toward the forest. For several seconds he said nothing. Then his voice cut through the square. Everyone inside. No one moved. Kael turned toward the villagers. Now! His alpha command rolled through the square. Doors opened. People rushed inside. Children were pulled from the streets. The council members hurried away from the platform. Even Seraphine stepped backward. Mara remained beside Kael. She could see the riders now. They were coming through the snow. Dark horses, dark cloaks, silver weapons. At least 20 of them. Kael's jaw tightened. Mara whispered, "Who are they?" "I don't know." "You do." Kael looked at her. His eyes were cold. "I know that horn." Mara's heart began beating faster. "What does it mean?" Kael looked toward the burned bridge. "It means someone wants us to remember the night of the fire." Another horn sounded. The riders stopped at the edge of the village. A man in black stepped forward. His face was hidden beneath a hood. He raised one hand. Every rider stopped. Then he called across the snow. "King Kael Varen." Kael stepped forward. "I am listening." The stranger laughed. "You crossed the bridge." Kael's expression did not change. "Yes. You swore you would never return." "I changed my mind." The stranger's laugh disappeared. "You should not have." Kael looked toward Mara, then back at the stranger. "Who sent you?" The man slowly removed his hood. Mara gasped. She knew him. He was one of the council's older guards. But he had disappeared years ago. Kael recognized him too. "Commander Darius." The man smiled. "You remember." "I remember everyone who betrayed my family." Darius's expression hardened. "Then you remember what happened here." Kael's eyes became silver. "I remember the fire." Darius looked toward Mara. "And you found her." Mara felt cold. Kael stepped in front of her. "Do not look at her." Darius laughed. "So the rumors are true." Kael's voice became dangerous. "What rumors?" "That the royal bloodline survived." Mara's fingers tightened around the pendant. Darius noticed. His eyes moved to it. "There it is." Kael immediately reached for his weapon. Darius raised his hand. The riders behind him drew their bows. Kael stopped. Mara whispered, "Don't." Kael glanced back. Mara shook her head. "There are villagers inside." Kael's eyes softened for a moment. Then he faced Darius. "What do you want?" "The girl." Kael answered immediately. "No." Darius smiled. "You don't even know what she is." "I know enough." "Do you?" Darius looked toward the 3 wolves. "Ask them." The wolves growled. Darius continued. "They crossed the burned bridge because they remember her." Mara stepped forward. "What do they remember?" Darius looked directly at her. "Your mother." Mara's breath caught. "What about her?" Darius's smile faded. "She did not die in the fire." Everything around Mara seemed to disappear. Kael looked at Darius. "You are lying." "Am I?" Darius reached inside his cloak. He pulled out a small object. A silver bracelet. Mara stared at it. She knew that bracelet. She had seen it in her dreams. The woman in the fire had been wearing it. Her mother. Mara took a step forward. "Where did you get that?" Darius held it up. "She gave it to me." Kael's face changed. "When?" "The night she escaped." Mara's voice trembled. "Where is she?" Darius looked at her. That depends. On what? On whether you come with us. Kael moved forward. She is not going anywhere. Darius laughed. You still think you can protect her? Kael's eyes flashed. I know I can. Darius raised his hand. The riders drew their bows. Kael's wolves stepped forward. The tension became unbearable. Mara looked at the villagers hiding behind the windows. She knew what would happen if the fighting began. People would be hurt. Homes would burn. The bridge could become another graveyard. She turned toward Kael. Don't fight them here. Kael looked at her. They came for you. I know. Then you stay behind me. Mara shook her head. If you fight here, people will die. Kael's voice became low. I will not let them take you. I am not asking you to let them. Mara stepped closer. I'm asking you to trust me. Kael stared at her. The words seemed to surprise him. You want me to trust you? Mara nodded. You told me courage is not the absence of fear. Kael said nothing. Mara continued. I'm afraid. She looked toward Darius. But I won't let my fear decide what happens to everyone else. Kael's expression changed. He understood. She was not trying to surrender. She was trying to protect the village. The same way she had protected Ash. Kael slowly nodded. Then stay beside me. Mara looked at him. Not behind you. Beside me. Her eyes softened. Okay. Seraphine watched them from the steps of the council hall. Something dark flashed across her face. She had expected Mara to hide. Instead, the Omega stood beside the Alpha King. Seraphine stepped forward. Darius. He looked toward her. She gave him a small nod. Mara noticed. Her stomach tightened. You know him. Seraphine's face remained calm. I know many people. You planned this. Seraphine looked at her. Perhaps. Kael turned toward Seraphine. Enough. But Mara was no longer afraid. She understood something. Seraphine wanted her alive. Darius wanted her alive. The wolves wanted to protect her. And Kael was willing to fight the entire village for her. Whatever was inside her bloodline. It was valuable. Very valuable. Darius suddenly threw the silver bracelet into the snow. Mara looked down. Your mother left this for you. She stepped forward. Kael caught her wrist. Wait. Mara looked at him. That belongs to my mother. I know. Then I need it. Kael studied the bracelet. Something is wrong. Darius laughed. You are finally learning. Kael looked toward the wolves. The largest wolf sniffed the bracelet. He immediately growled. Backed away. Mara froze. The wolves were afraid of it. Kael's eyes narrowed. It's a trap. Darius smiled. The ground beneath the bridge suddenly shook. Mara stumbled. Kael grabbed her arm. A deep cracking sound echoed through the valley. Then flames erupted from the old ruins. The burned bridge was burning again. The villagers screamed from their homes. Mara stared in horror. The exact same place. The exact same flames. The exact same nightmare. Kael looked at the fire. No. The flames spread across the old wooden remains. Darius stepped backward. You remember now. Kael's face became furious. You started this. Darius shook his head. No. He looked toward Seraphine. She did. Mara turned. Seraphine was standing perfectly still. Her expression was no longer afraid. She was smiling. Mara felt betrayed. You knew this would happen. Seraphine looked at her. Of course. People could die. They are not my concern. Kael stepped forward. You have gone too far. Seraphine raised her hand. The riders moved. But before they could attack, the 3 white wolves charged toward the burning bridge. She ran with them. Mara screamed. Ash! She started after him. Kael grabbed he. Stay here. He'll be trapped. The young wolf disappeared into the smoke. Mara fought against Kael's grip. Let me go. No. He's inside. Kael looked at the flames. His expression changed. He released her. Then he ran into the fire. Mara stared in shock. Kael! The Alpha King disappeared behind the burning smoke. The wolves were somewhere inside. Mara could hear Ash crying. She could not stand still. She looked at the burning bridge. Then at the frightened villagers. Then at the flames. Her entire life had been controlled by fear. Fear of the bridge. Fear of the wolves. Fear of the village. Fear of being alone. But Ash was inside. And Kael had gone after him. Mara stepped toward the flames. A villager shouted, "Mara, don't!" She kept walking. The heat struck her face. The old bridge groaned. Mara took another step. Then another. She remembered Kael's words. Being afraid does not make you weak. Abandoning what matters because you are afraid does. Mara looked into the flames. "I'm coming." And she crossed the burned bridge. For 12 years, no wolf had crossed it. Now Mara was crossing it too. Behind her, Seraphine's smile disappeared. Because she suddenly understood something terrifying. The bridge was not rejecting Mara. It was opening for her. And beneath the flames, something ancient had begun to awaken. Mara stepped into the fire. Heat rushed around her. Smoke filled the air. The ruined bridge groaned beneath her feet as flames climbed along the old beams. For 12 years, everyone in Frostmere had been taught to fear this place. They had called it cursed. They had called it death. But Mara could not think about the curse anymore. She could only think about Ash. And Kael. "Ash!" Her voice disappeared into the smoke. No answer. Mara moved forward. The fire burned around the edges of the bridge. But something strange happened when she stepped across the center. The flames moved away from her. Mara stopped. She stared. The fire should have been surrounding her. Instead, it seemed to bend around her body. A pale silver light appeared beneath the snow. Mara looked down. The same royal symbol from the pendant was glowing beneath her feet. "What is happening?" A deep howl answered. Mara ran toward the sound. She found the 3 white wolves standing inside the old stone chamber beneath the bridge. Kael was there too. He was kneeling beside a collapsed wall. One hand was pressed against the stone. "Ash!" The young wolf rushed toward Mara. She dropped to her knees and held him. "You scared me." Ash pressed his head against her chest. Kael stood slowly. "You shouldn't have come." Mara looked at him. "Neither should you." For a moment they simply stared at each other. Then Kael gave the smallest smile. "You are impossible." Mara almost smiled back. "So are you." A loud crack interrupted them. Chamber shook. Kael looked toward the ceiling. "We need to leave." But before they could move, the stone wall behind them collapsed. A hidden passage appeared. Cold air rushed through the chamber. The wolves immediately moved toward it. Mara looked at Kael. "They know where to go." Kael nodded. "Then we follow." They entered the passage. It was narrow and dark. Old symbols covered the walls. Mara touched one. The moment her fingers made contact, a warm light appeared. Kael looked at her. "The walls are responding to you." Mara shook her head. "I don't understand." "Neither do I." They continued deeper. Then Mara saw something carved into the stone. Woman. Baby. 3 wolves. And a burning bridge. She stepped closer. "That's my mother." Kael looked at the carving. He recognized the woman. "It is." Mara touched the stone. Another vision came. A fire. Screaming. Her mother running through smoke. A young man following her. 3 white wolves protecting them. Mara heard her mother's voice. "Take him." The young man shook his head. "What about you?" "I will follow. You know they will come for you." "I know." The woman looked toward the baby in her arms. Then she kissed his forehead. "Protect him." The vision changed. The young man carried the child away. Mara's mother turned back toward the flames. Mara gasped. The vision disappeared. She stumbled. Kael caught her. "Are you all right?" Mara looked at him. "My mother." Kael waited. She wasn't running away. No. She went back. Kael nodded. She went back to stop the fire. Mara looked down. Why? Kael's face became grim. To save the kingdom. A voice echoed from deeper inside the passage. Not the kingdom. Mara froze. Kael reached for his weapon. The three wolves growled. A figure appeared from the darkness. An old man. He wore a faded royal cloak. His hair was completely white.